In the middle of a noisy alien market, there was a small alien dog tied to a wooden pole. Its fur looked rough and uneven. One of its eyes was bigger than the other, and its short tail was bent like a hook. It didn't look like the cute pets people liked. Instead, it looked broken, strange, and ugly. The alien merchant who owned the dog stood nearby. He had blue skin for long arms and wore gold rings on each finger. He had tried to sell the alien dog for days, but nobody wanted it. Many aliens came, looked at the dog, made a face, and walked away. "This thing is useless," the merchant said angrily. "Too ugly? Too strange? I should have picked one of the shiny, soft ones." The dog, whose name was Kiro, didn't bark. He didn't make a sound. He had already learned that staying quiet was safer. Every time someone touched him, they said something bad. He had never felt love, never had a warm home. The merchant untied the rope. For a second, Kiro thought he was free. But then the merchant walked over to a trash pile and tied Kiro to a broken fence beside it. "You stay here now," the merchant said coldly. "Maybe someone will take you. I'm done with you." Just like that, the merchant walked away and disappeared into the crowd. Kiro sat quietly. His body was weak. His stomach was empty. He had not eaten for 2 days. Flies buzzed around him, and the heat made his body even more tired. Still, he stayed quiet. His big eyes just watched the people walking by. Some alien children pointed at him and laughed. "Look at that weird thing," one of them said. "It's so ugly." No one stopped. No one cared. But then, as the sun began to set and the market started to slow down, a human walked by. He wore dirty overalls with oil stains and had a small tool belt around his waist. He had messy brown hair and tired eyes. He wasn't rich. He wasn't famous. He was just a mechanic who repaired broken ships and machines. The human noticed Kiro tied to the fence. He stopped walking. Kiro lifted his head slowly. Their eyes met. The human didn't laugh. He didn't frown either. He crouched down and looked at the small creature closely. "You've had a rough life, haven't you?" the human said quietly. "You're not pretty, but I've fixed uglier things." He looked around. No one seemed to care about the dog. "Who left you here?" he asked softly. An alien shopkeeper nearby said, "That beast." The merchant left it, said it was too ugly to keep. "It's worthless." The human didn't like that answer. He looked back at the little dog. Kiro didn't move, but his tail made the smallest shake. "Well," the human said, "you may be ugly, but you're not worthless." He untied the rope and picked Kiro up gently. The dog didn't resist. He was too weak. But for the first time, he felt warm hands. "You're coming." "With me?" the human whispered. The shopkeeper laughed. "You'll regret it, human. That thing brings bad luck." The human didn't listen. He walked away, holding Kiro like something fragile and important. The sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow over the market. The first time in his life, Kiro felt something strange, a tiny spark of hope. He didn't know the human's name or where they were going, but he knew one thing. He had finally been chosen. The human mechanic walked through the dusty streets with the small alien dog in his arms. The sun was low now, painting the sky orange. The dog, Kiro, didn't move much. His body was weak and his eyes looked tired, but he felt something warm in the human's arms, something new. The mechanic reached his small workshop near the old shipyard. It wasn't big or fancy, just a metal shed with broken ship parts, tools, and spare wires scattered around. Smoke gently rose from a pipe on the roof. It looked like a place full of noise and work, but it was also home. The human placed Kiro gently on a soft folded blanket inside. "There," he said. "You'll rest here for now." Kiro looked around with wide eyes. He had never been inside. A place like this before smelled like oil, dust, and warm food. In one corner, a broken robot leg lay on the floor. Another, a toolbox buzzed quietly. The mechanic brought a bowl of water and an old metal dish filled with soft food. "It's not fancy," he said with a small smile, "but it should help." Kiro sniffed the food. Slowly, carefully, he took a bite. His eyes lit up. It was the first real meal he had in days. He finished it all, and licked the bowl clean. Then he looked at the human and wagged his crooked tail once. "That's better," the human said, wiping his hands on a cloth. "I think I'll call you Bolt. Yeah, Bolt. You're like a strange old bolt I once found, rusty and rough, but strong inside." Bolt liked the sound of that. The next day, Bolt watched the mechanic work. The human was busy fixing a floating cargo bike. Sparks flew as he welded a broken pipe. His hands moved fast, but his eyes were calm. Bolt stayed on the blanket and watched. Every move, he didn't bark or run. He just listened and learned. The human looked over. "You're quiet," he said. "That's good. Most creatures around here make a mess." At lunchtime, the human shared a sandwich with Bolt. Half for himself, half for the dog. Bolt didn't care what it tasted like. He was just happy to be near someone who cared. In the evening, 2 alien neighbors came by. They saw Bolt lying near the human's workbench. One laughed. "Why are you keeping that ugly thing?" the other said. "You should throw it back too." The junkyard, the mechanic didn't laugh. Stood and looked at them seriously. He was thrown away once, not again. The aliens rolled their eyes and left. Bolt lowered his head, feeling sad again. But the human patted his back and said, "Ignore them. Ugly doesn't mean useless." That night, it rained. Cold drops hit the metal roof. Thunder echoed in the distance. Bolt shook a little and crawled under the mechanic's desk. The human noticed and pulled a blanket off a chair. He gently wrapped it around Bolt and sat beside him. "You're safe here," he whispered. Bolt closed his eyes. Days turned into a week. Bolt grew stronger, started walking around the workshop. He helped by carrying small tools in his mouth. The human laughed and said, "You're better than my last helper, Bot." Bolt wagged his tail more now.
Oh.
He still looked strange. His fur was still messy. His eyes were still too big. But in the workshop, none of that mattered. For the first time, he had a name, a blanket, a bowl of food, and someone who saw value in him. Bolt didn't understand everything, but he knew one thing clearly. This was home now, and he would protect it with all he had. Bolt had now been living in the mechanic's workshop for 2 weeks. Every day he got a little stronger. His legs stopped shaking. His eyes became brighter. He started walking around the shop like he belonged there. The mechanic noticed something strange one morning. He was fixing a hover engine when he turned and saw Bolt standing in the shadows. The dog's eyes were glowing faintly like tiny blue lights. The human scratched his head. "That's not normal," he whispered. He pulled out a small hand scanner and aimed it at Bolt. A green beam of light scanned the dog's body. The screen blinked, beeped, and showed something unexpected. Inside Bolt's body were tiny wires, circuits, and power cells. "What in the galaxy? ... The mechanic said. "You read part machine?" Bolt tilted his head, confused. The mechanic stared at the scanner again. "You're not just an alien dog. You're a biomechanical creature." Half living, half built, Bolt sat down. His tail tapped the floor slowly. The human knelt beside him. "No wonder they called you strange. You were made ... not born." He checked Bolt's paw and found a small panel hidden under fur. He opened it and found a tiny port like a charging plug. "You're a mix of tech and biology. Someone built you ... but badly." Now it made sense why Bolt was always tired. His energy system was damaged. His body had weak signals. His machine, Psy, needed help. "I can fix this," the mechanic said softly. For the next few days, he worked on Bolt carefully. He cleaned the circuits, replaced broken wires, and gave him a small power chip to charge his system. He even added a tiny voice sensor, just in case Bolt wanted to learn human words later. Bolt didn't cry or bark. He just watched, listened, and trusted. On the 5th day, something amazing happened. The mechanic was working on a flying drone when his tool slipped and cut his hand. He dropped the metal piece and grabbed his wrists. Bolt, lying nearby, stood up quickly and walked over. He looked at the blood and gently touched the mechanic's arm with his paw. Then, soft blue light came from Bolt's. Panned the wound started healing slowly. The human stared in shock. "You have ... healing tech?" he asked. Bolt didn't answer, of course. But his glowing eyes looked calm, like he knew what he was doing. The mechanic shook his head. "You're full of surprises, Bolt." That night, the mechanic couldn't sleep. He sat on his small metal bed, thinking, "Who made you?" He whispered to the ceiling. "Why were you thrown away like garbage?" He looked at Bolt sleeping peacefully on the blanket beside the desk. "You're not broken," he said. "You're just unfinished." The next day, the mechanic made a decision. He would dig deeper. He connected Bolt to his old data reader and downloaded the small bits of memory Bolt's system had saved. Most of it was damaged or locked. But one image came through a dark lab, glowing red lights, and a symbol from a powerful alien empire. The mechanic's eyes narrowed. "You were part of something big, and they didn't want you anymore." Bolt opened one eye and looked up. The mechanic reached down and patted his head. "Doesn't matter who made you. What matters is what we do now." Bolt's tail wagged slowly. He was changing not just inside, but outside too. His fur began to grow cleaner. His steps became stronger. His eyes, once dull and scared, now glowed with quiet power. The mechanic knew something important now. Bolt wasn't just a pet. He was something forgotten. ... Something rare. ... And maybe something dangerous. But to the human, he was still just Bolt. His dog, his friend, his family. The mechanic sat in his workshop, staring at the blurry image on his screen. It was a red symbol, sharp, strange, and glowing, taken from Bolt's memory. He had seen this symbol before. It belonged to the Zarkon Empire, a powerful alien group known for secret experiments. "So they created you," the mechanic whispered, "and then they threw you away." Bolt sat nearby, chewing gently on an old glove. His eyes glowed softly. In the dim light, he looked peaceful, but the truth behind his creation was not. Later that evening, the mechanic was fixing a solar converter when someone knocked loudly at the door. Bang, bang, bang. He opened the door and found two aliens standing outside. Both wore dark uniforms and silver badges. Their eyes were cold. One was tall with green scales, and the other had skin like glass. "Are you the human mechanic?" the tall one asked. "Yes," the human said calmly. "What do you want?" "Have been informed that you're keeping a bio unit," the second alien said. "A rejected one." The mechanic didn't answer. The green one stepped forward. "That creature you found belongs to the Zarkon Empire. Return it immediately." The human raised an eyebrow. "You mean the dog someone tied to a fence and left? To die? That one?" "That was a mistake," the alien replied. "It is government property." "He's not property," the human said firmly. "He's Bolt. He lives with me now." The aliens didn't like that answer. "You have 3 days to hand him over," the glass-skinned alien warned. "If you don't, we will come back, and it won't be a friendly visit." They turned and left without another word. The mechanic closed the door slowly. His hands were shaking a little, but not from fear, from anger. He looked at Bolt. The dog looked up, confused. "They want you back," the human said quietly. "But I won't let them take you." That night, the mechanic couldn't sleep. He sat at his desk, drawing blueprints and thinking of ways to protect Bolt. He built a hidden compartment under the floor in case they came early. He also upgraded Bolt's body just a little. Faster legs, stronger claws, and a small voice chip. "Just say one word," the human said, connecting the chip. "Cry ... hello." Bolt looked at him and blinked. Then, in a low, robotic tone, he said, "Hello." The mechanic smiled. "Good boy." The next morning, rumors spread around the market. Some said the human was hiding a dangerous creature. Others said Bolt could shoot fire from his eyes. The truth was, nobody really knew, only that something special was happening in that little workshop. Some alien neighbors stopped by, pretending to be friendly. One asked if she could see the creature. Another offered to buy the dog for a high price, but the human turned them all away. "He's not for sale," he said. 3 days passed. The human prepared for the worst. He set up traps around the shop. "Nothing deadly," just enough to slow someone down. He locked the doors, reinforced the windows, and kept Bolt close. On the third night, the wind blew hard outside. The sky turned dark, and thunder rolled across the colony skies. The mechanic stood by the door, holding a wrench in one hand. Bolt sat beside him, his eyes glowing like small blue lights. "If they come," the human said, "we fight together." Bolt barked once, low and deep. He wasn't afraid anymore. He had been rejected once, thrown away like trash. But now, he had someone who would stand with him no matter what came next. They were ready. Together, it was the middle of the night. The wind outside howled like a wild beast. Most of the colony was asleep. But inside the small workshop, the human mechanic and Bolt were wide awake. They both felt it. Something was coming. The mechanic stood quietly near the back door. He had shut all lights and locked every window. Bolt stood by his side, alert ears up, his glowing eyes scanning the darkness. Then it happened. A loud crack broke the silence. The front door was blasted open by a small explosion. Smoke rushed into the workshop, followed by 4 armored aliens, dressed in black and wearing helmets. "Search everything," one shouted. "Find the unit." Bolt growled, low, like a warning engine. His tail went stiff, and his mechanical parts started to light up. The mechanic pressed a hidden button on the wall. A flash trap exploded in the hallway, sending sparks everywhere. The invaders jumped back, shouting in surprise. "Go! Bolt!" the human whispered. "You know what to do." Bolt ran fast, too fast for the aliens to catch. He darted under tables and behind machines, knocking over tool carts and fuel cans as he moved. The workshop became a maze of fire, smoke, and metal. One alien tried to catch him, but Bolt leaped over a pipe and scratched the alien's chest plate with his glowing claws. Sparks flew and the alien dropped his weapon. "Don't let it escape," another screamed. Meanwhile, the mechanic used his tools like weapons. He swung a heavy wrench at one alien's leg, making him fall. Then he used a power drill to jam another's suit joint, locking it in place. Bolt circled around and returned to the mechanic's side. Together, they stood near the center of the shop. "Give us the unit," one alien shouted. "No," the human said simply. Then Bolt did something none of them expected. His chest opened slightly, and a blue energy pulse shot out. It hit the aliens with a low hum, freezing their suits for a few seconds. The invaders stumbled, confused and stuck. "What is that thing?" One alien gasped. The human smirked. "That's Bolt, and he's mine." The remaining 2 attackers tried to run, but Bolt was faster. He jumped and blocked their path. His body glowed brighter now. His once ugly features now looked powerful. Even beautiful, the attackers finally realized they were outmatched. "Fall back," one shouted. "We weren't told it had upgrades." They threw down smoke bombs and disappeared into the night. When the smoke cleared, the mechanic and Bolt stood alone in the ruined workshop. Broken tools and parts were scattered everywhere. The front door was in pieces. The air smelled like metal and fire. Bolt limped a little, one of his legs slightly damaged. The mechanic ran to him and knelt down. "You okay, buddy?" he asked softly. Bolt let out a low whine but nodded. The mechanic smiled, even though his face was covered in dust. "We did it." He patched Bolt's leg using a small energy wrap. "You saved my life tonight." Bolt looked at him, then slowly said in his robotic voice, "You ... saved me first." The mechanic froze. That was the first time Bolt had spoken more than one word. "You're learning fast," the human whispered, surprised. Bolt wagged his tail. Even in the middle of wreckage and danger, he felt proud. They sat down together on the workshop floor, breathing slowly. The stars outside were now visible through the broken ceiling. For the first time, Bolt wasn't just a rejected creature. He wasn't a broken pet. He was a protector, and he had just defended his home. The morning after the attack, the mechanic stood in the middle of his broken workshop. Wires hung from the ceiling, tools were scattered everywhere, and the front door lay in pieces. But Bolt was alive. That was all that mattered. The mechanic gave Bolt a careful look. His body had small scratches and dents, but his eyes were still bright. He had protected the shop, the human, and himself. "You're full of secrets," the mechanic whispered, brushing dust off Bolt's back. "But I want to know them all." He decided it was time to learn the full truth. The mechanic pulled out an old alien computer tablet, connected it to Bolt's system, and ran a deep scan. Blue lines of code flashed across the screen. Slowly, Bolt's memory started unlocking. Some files were broken. Some were locked. But one file opened, a video file, blurry and flickering. It showed a dark lab with machines and wires everywhere. In the center was a row of strange cages, and inside each one was a small creature that looked like Bolt. Scientists in dark coats were walking around. They didn't smile. They didn't pet the creatures. They just wrote notes, typed on computers, and tested strange tools. The human watched silently. Then the video changed. An explosion, fire, panic. The lab was attacked by rebels, or maybe destroyed. From the inside, some creatures escaped, some didn't. The file ended with Bolt hiding under a table, shivering. The screen turned black. The mechanic sighed. "You weren't born. You were made, as part of an experiment." Bolt looked down, as if he could feel those old memories returning. "You were never just a pet," the human continued. "You were part of a secret project." He turned to a second screen and searched the Zarkon Empire database. After digging through restricted files and hidden logs, he found a name: Project Vernex, a failed military experiment to create biotech hounds for tracking and combat. The Empire had created 50 of them, but most were too unstable. They were either destroyed or dumped. Only a few survived, and Bolt was one of them. The mechanic sat back, silent for a while. "They called you a mistake," he said. "But we're wrong." Bolt sat beside him and placed his paw on the mechanic's hand. "You're not a weapon. You're a miracle," the human said. After a moment of quiet, the mechanic stood up and smiled. "If they gave up on you, we'll rebuild. You better." That day, he began working on Bolt again. This time, not to repair but to upgrade. He installed better leg joints for faster running, stronger energy core for longer power. He built light armor that covered Bolt's weak spots, but still let him move freely. And then he added something. Specialist small translator chip near Bolt's voice box. With training, Bolt would slowly learn to speak more human words. When the work was done, Bolt stood up taller, stronger, faster. He looked in the mirror and blinked at his reflection. He still looked different from other pets. But now, he didn't look ugly. He looked powerful. Later that night, the mechanic cooked simple food, bread and soup. He shared it with Bolt, like always. They sat on the floor beside the workshop window, watching the stars outside. "Do you understand now?" the human asked. Softly, Bolt looked at him and said clearly, "I, am not junk." The human's eyes widened. Then he laughed. "No, Bolt, you're definitely not junk." Bolt's tail wagged slowly, for the first time in his life. He didn't feel rejected or broken. He felt whole, and he was ready for whatever came next. After weeks of healing and upgrades, Bolt was no longer the ugly alien dog that the market merchant had rejected. He was stronger, smarter, and more confident. But the real change was not only in Bolt, it was in how others saw him. Word spread quickly through the colony about the human mechanic and his strange pet. At first, many aliens were curious, but still afraid. They whispered stories about the dog's glowing eyes and his powerful energy bursts. Some thought Bolt was dangerous. Others said he was a miracle. One sunny morning, children from nearby homes came to the workshop. They peeked through the windows, watching Bolt play with small robots and chase tools the mechanic tossed. Bolt barked happily, his crooked tail wagging like never before. "Can we pet him?" one little girl asked shyly. The mechanic smiled and opened the door, of course. Bolt loves new friends. The children laughed and reached out to touch Bolt's smooth fur and glowing paws. Bolt licked their hands gently and sat still, happy to have new company. More neighbors came too, bringing gifts, some homemade treats, other small gadgets. Even some aliens who once mocked Bolt now stopped by to say hello. The mechanic watched. With pride, "Looks like you've made quite the fans, Bolt." Bolt looked up at him with shining eyes and a soft bark. But not everyone was pleased. The Zarkon Empire still wanted Bolt back. However, after the failed attack, they realized that Bolt had become too strong and loved by many. Their agents decided to stay away for now. Bolt wore a small badge on his chest that the mechanic had made. It said, "Protector of the Workshop." Bolt took his job seriously. He guarded the workshop and the mechanic, watching for any danger with sharp eyes and a strong heart. One afternoon, the mechanic was fixing a broken engine when Bolt suddenly growled. The mechanic looked up and saw a group of suspicious aliens approaching the workshop. "Stay here," the mechanic said quietly. But Bolt was already moving. He stood tall, glowing with light. When the aliens came closer, Bolt barked loudly, a deep, strong sound that echoed through the street. The aliens stopped and looked scared. One tried to step forward, but Bolt jumped in front, blocking the path. "We protect what is ours," Bolt seemed to say without words. The aliens hesitated and then turned away. The mechanic smiled and gave Bolt a gentle pat. "Good job, Bolt. You're not just a pet, you're family." That night, the mechanic and Bolt sat outside under the stars. The colony was quiet and peaceful. "Do you remember when they tied you up and left you to die?" the human asked softly. Bolt looked up, eyes shining with memories. "You've come a long way," the mechanic said. "From a rejected, ugly dog to a hero." Bolt wagged his tail, happy and proud. The mechanic laughed. "You taught me something important, Bolt. It's not about how you look, it's about what's inside." Bolt nuzzled the mechanic's hand. 4. The first time in his life, Bolt felt truly loved. It's not because he was perfect, but because someone saw his worth. And the mechanic knew that no matter what challenges came next, he and Bolt would face them together. Because together, they were unstoppable. The end.